My name is Dylan Zivchak, and I'm your host on Para-Newfield. Behind me is Connecticut Hill in Newfield, New York. Many people think Connecticut Hill is a place of extraordinary paranormal activity, and we're here to take a closer look. But first, let's look at the history of Connecticut Hill itself. For many centuries, Connecticut Hill was covered by virgin forests. I'm standing in the Fisher Woods, a 35-acre tract of old-growth forest in Newfield, about 3 miles from Connecticut Hill. This is what Connecticut Hill would have looked like 200 years ago, before the land was cleared for farming. Notice there are a lot of very tall trees and not much vegetation down below. Also, the ground is uneven, which shows it was never made level for farming. According to Alan Chafee, who's been the Newfield town historian since 1973, what is now the town of Newfield was part of a much larger tract of land called the Watkins and Flint Purchase, which was bought for speculation and investment in 1794. In time, a big piece of Newfield came to be owned by Robert Johnson. Mr. Chafee tells us how Connecticut Hill got its name.
Residents of Connecticut, Robert Johnson, lived in Connecticut. He owned land here, but he was still a resident of Connecticut. He owed a lot of school taxes, so the state of Connecticut went after him. So he traded 69,000 acres, I think. No, 48,000 acres for $69,000. No, that's not right either. He owed $69,000, and he traded 16,000 acres for $48,000 of that debt. And that was an 1800. That included Connecticut Hill.
So now Connecticut owns, the state of Connecticut owns that property.
It was some time before settlers in any numbers started clearing the forest for farmland. Probably not until the 1820s, but by 1850, the hill was dotted with scores of farms. There were roads, schoolhouses, and cemeteries. But the soil on the hill was easily exhausted, and the growing season at the higher elevation was short. It was hard going, and by the late 1880s, the farms on the Connecticut Hill started to be abandoned. By the turn of the 20th century, the hill was known for empty and abandoned farmland. All those farms in the community on Connecticut Hill were abandoned and gone by the 1930s. Connecticut Hill was reclaimed by nature, leaving only the foundation of the houses and barns, stone walls, and the cemetery. The federal government and then New York State acquired title to the land. Now Connecticut Hill is the largest wildlife management area in New York State, but many people, including experts in the field of paranormal activity, think that there is more than wildlife lurking in this forest. Some call it the Alpine Portal to a supernatural world. We brought in two experts in the field of paranormal activity, both of whom are familiar with Connecticut Hill. Denny Blair on the left is a paranormal investigator and founder of Paranormal Warrior. On the right is Timothy Holmes, a Bigfoot investigator of many years. Both are well known in the paranormal community and have visited Connecticut Hill many times. We interviewed them about their experience and asked them what it is about Connecticut Hill that makes it a hotspot for paranormal activity.
Without paranormal, what we found out, there's energy coming out of the ground. We call them energy plugs, and when you drive through these energy zones, your car, it's like a UFO hanging over you, beaming, electricity down. Your car would just hesitate, the lights would turn off, and you just got to get out of the plug. So when we're searching in an area, you can't be in the woods that long because you start getting dementia, because all this energy is coming up. I call you can say if you blow bubbles and put energy there and just put it around Connecticut Hill, there's a lot of energy coming out of the hill for some reason.
While Tim has yet to confirm a Sasquatch sighting on Connecticut Hill himself, there was an incident that made the news 6 years ago. At 8:30 in the morning on December 8, 2013, about an hour after sunrise, two men were hiking on Van Loon Road on Connecticut Hill. Suddenly they heard a noise. That's when they report having seen a creature about 100 yards away walking towards a patch of woods. They described it as being at least 9 feet tall, with broad shoulders and black hair. Walking upright, the two men reportedly observed the creature for about 15 seconds before vanishing into the woods. They were so shaken by the experience, leaving over 200 worth of hiking equipment behind. Connecticut Hill Cemetery has long thought to be haunted. Though there are many, perhaps hundreds of unmarked graves on Connecticut Hill, our experts tell us of a story from one of their visits.
I was in there with Denny during the winter time, and every time we go up there, I get the car around the corner. Then they go, okay, let's go to the cemetery. It's dark. I said, oh, okay, I'll be right there. I don't want to go in. We were in there one time when we filmed, and all of a sudden we hit a miss. And we saw that on film. We hit a miss.
Yeah, we had whitish
this whitish thing went around Denny. It stopped, and it was a female with long black hair, and then it stopped right next to Denny, then it moved on.
This cemetery has a reputation far beyond the town of Newfield. There are countless stories like this of unexplained myths, rustling leaves when there is no wind, or strange noises in the woods. Probably the best known story, at least locally, is the legend of the Witch of Connecticut Hill. I'm standing next to the grave of Elizabeth Whitney, believed by many to be a witch who still inhabits this place. Elizabeth Whitney died in 1900 at the age of 94 and was laid to rest right here in the Connecticut Hill Cemetery. We don't know a lot about Elizabeth Whitney, but here's what we do have. She was born Elizabeth Engel on October 18th, 1805, and by 1830 she married Ezra Whitney and moved to Connecticut Hill. They were farmers and had 5 children, 2 of whom died young and are buried in the cemetery. Ezra died in 1870, leaving Elizabeth alone in the house on Connecticut Hill for the next 30 years. She died on October 3rd, 1900, 94 years old, and during those last decades is when the abandonment of Connecticut Hill began. For over 100 years, this was the stone that marked her grave. Then, sometime in the last year or so, this new headstone appeared. We've contacted every monument company in a 50-mile radius, and nobody knows who put it there. In the summer of 2019, the new monument was smashed to pieces. We don't know how or why. Nobody knows for sure the origins of the legend of the Witch of Connecticut Hill. But as you can see, visitors leave offerings at her grave, and there are those who believe that there is a curse to touch any part of her gravestone is to bring yourself bad luck. Connecticut Hill is also known for numerous UFO sightings in the 1960s, but we'll save that for another chapter of Para-Newfield. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Para-Newfield. Connecticut Hill is a mysterious place for sure, a place where the impossible seems possible. Don't be surprised if you see something you can't quite explain. In the words of Timothy Holmes, the hill knows you're coming. Until next time, I'm your host, Dylan Zifchak.